Hi guys, it's Jen here and welcome to Jen's Wild About Art. So today I'm going to paint a little gouache seascape for you, and I'm using my Sennelier gouache paints, and I'm working on Arches medium grained watercolour paper, 300 grams. So I just started by drawing in a few little boats and a couple little mountains in the background. So now I'm going to start with my blue and my white. So I just cobalt blue and white, and I make a pale sky colour, and I run that down the sky towards the mountains. I just fill in all those areas, take that down. I cut around a bit of the edge. You don't have to with gouache because you can go over things. I'm just so used to doing watercolour that I cut around everything. So now I'm going to make up a slightly darker colour, and I'm going to use that for the furthest mountains that are the coolest in the distance. So I make that lighter purple, so that's just a bit of blue, bit of magenta and a little bit of white, and I run that into the furthest mountains because they're the coolest and the palest. As things disappear off into the distance, they get paler, more pale. So now I'm making up a slightly thicker consistency and a little bit darker of the same colours, so it's magenta and cobalt blue. And for the foreground or the middle ground mountains, I use this slightly darker, thicker mix. So I fill in those mountains behind the boats, and I start to cut around the masts and things, and I'm like, I don't have to, because I can just add the white of the masts over the top because it's gouache, and gouache is flexible like that, which is really nice. So I run that sort of darker purple across the middle ground mountains. So you can see the coolest and the lightest in the distance, a bit stronger colour in the mid-ground, and now for these mountains in the foreground, I'm going in with olive green. And I'll add a few different colours. I'll add this olive green as the base, just to start with, and then I'll add a few different greens. I'll add a little bit of the purple to it and mix it up a bit just to give it some interest, so it's not all just one flat green. And I'll also add a little bit of colour to that middle ground mountain as well. So you can see I've mixed in with the paint that I had existing on my palette, the green, and then I drop that in, so it's the green with the purple, just to make it darker, and I drop that into the foreground mountain. And I don't do it universally, I just add it sort of in blotches and let it flow. And I also run it into the mid-ground mountain, as you can see here, and I cut around the boats a little bit. And that just makes them a little bit darker and a little bit more natural looking. So now I'm going into the water, and I'm using cobalt blue and white, and I take that over pretty much everywhere that I want the water to be. I do leave a little bit of the paper showing through, the white paper showing through, because I like the effect of the grain of the paper against, it just creates sparkle. It creates a bit of sparkle in the painting. So I go through and I just add that blue, leaving gaps in the paint, and that adds to the ripples and reflections on the water. It just keeps it looking nice. So that's the beauty of, well, it's gouache. It's the beauty of gouache and watercolour. You can do the same thing with watercolour. So now I'm going in with ultramarine blue into the shadow areas. The mountain that you can see off to the right, that's creating shadows in the water. So I add that in with the ultramarine. And I start to add shadows in a stronger purple colour over the top. So I use ultramarine and a little bit of magenta, just to purple that up a little bit. And I get a little bit more blue in there. I add a little bit of green into that as well, actually, just because the green's reflecting off the mountain a little bit into the water. So I just pop that in there as well. And now I start to work on the shadows underneath the boats, and I take that down the mast lines because you can see the reflections of the masts in the water. So I pop those in, and they're quite simple to do. That's still a little bit wet right there, I just realised, so I'll go and work on this other boat in the middle at the back. And just get those reflections in. And now I'm adding some ripple textures. So I'm literally just drawing using my ultramarine blue and a bit of purple, and I'm taking that anywhere that I can see ripples. And it just, because it's just lovely, the reflections on this water in the reference photo was really pretty, and I just thought I wanted to really try and see if I could achieve this with gouache. So I'm just checking that's dry off there to the right, and now I'm mixing up a little bit more pigment, making a bit of a stronger purple, and I'm going in to that shadow colour underneath that boat to the furthest right. So as you can see, it's dried enough now that I can plop that in there and get that shadow colour happening, and create, like, pop it in the ripple texture. And I'll darken up right down into the foreground. You can see I'd sort of drawn light lines just to give me an idea of where I wanted the shadows to be at their medium tone and darkest tone. So now I'm going to darken up the shadows on that boat in the background. I'm starting to build up the shadows right across, and then I realise I need to add a bit of ocean behind that boat. I forgot a little bit of ocean. So we'll just pop that little bit of ocean back in there behind that boat. So I've done that, and I've just done that in the sky colour, literally the sky colour. So now I'm popping the mast in on that furthest boat to the right, and then I'll add the ripples over the top. Just make it look a bit softer. So now I'm going to add the masts in, and I'm going over the top of my pencil drawing with just pure white gouache, and I take that right down from the top. I start at the top and work my way down. I'm trying desperately to keep my hand steady because I get the wobbles up usually. So, and they've got little booms on the back of those masts, so I pop those on. So I just pop them all in white, keeping as straight, as steady a hand as I can possibly keep. Move my palette out the way because I can't quite get to the edge of that one where I need to. And then pop that boom in on that one. And then I can actually add a bit more. I can tidy up that boat because the cab of that boat, I'd lost the shape a little bit, so I just add that back in. And now I'm adding a little bit of red to the, starting to add the colour, little pops of colour to the boats now. So I add a little bit of red to the bottom of that boat and a little bit onto the boom. So now I'm adding a little bit of turquoise to this boat second from the left, just to add a little bit of colour into that one as well. I just think it's nice to have a little pop of colour, and it just takes the eye around the painting. To pop a little bit of that on its boom as well. I add a little touch of red to that third boat from the left. And now I'm going to work on this boat furthest to the right, and I'm just going to add in the windows, and I've just made up a dark, I used burnt umber cobalt blue to make up a dark grey, a purpley grey, and I pop that anywhere that I see the windows on that little boat, little portholes. And then I'm going to go in with a little bit of turquoise. I really like that turquoise, so I'm going to pop a little bit of turquoise on that boat as well. And then I'm going to tidy up the shapes around the back of that little boat. And then pop a little bit of turquoise onto the mast and the boom. And then I've got to pop the little railings on the front of the boat. And we're just about done, peeps. So I hope you've enjoyed this video. I'd love it if you click like and subscribe and click on the bell icon. And I will see you all for the next video. Have an awesome day. Okie dokie. Bye.